doomsday, and I am the only one who's going to protect you from it. And these are people who you go to for your redressal. These are people who you vote and elect, so they could protect you from, all this superstitious nonsense. Where do we draw the line? What should a common person, common man or woman, have as part of her knowledge, so she could attack it in the very grassroots level? What should I know? So I know it is wrong. What do I do about it when the government itself is involved in activities like this?
Well, because we are still a maturing democracy and there are doubts about that, this is a challenge for us. But caveat emptor, let the consumer be aware, the consumer of spiritual services or of political services. If you are not going to be investing your intellect, your energy, your knowledge into understanding what you will get by doing what you are doing, you will always fail. And that is what we have done as a nation. We have accepted whatever came towards us. We haven't been a participatory democracy in a real sense. We are also a consumer of these services that we have. So we are some way away. But what do we do about it? Education. There is no shortcut to any of this. Other countries where people are in not a very good condition, but better than us, there have been centuries of struggle in this direction. That is the only thing. We can accelerate it with technology using the mass media, but it cannot be that we can't go through all those pains of each one learning and each society understanding the worth of being vigilant about our freedoms. Unfortunately, there is no shortcut.
Maybe can you give a background to the code? I am a Shastri, but not a mainstream. I understand that we should have a holistic approach towards spreading of pluralism, but this code smokes us like conversation. That's what Shastri is better than a mainstream someday. Things are better than rules or something. What is the background? If you just flip around like I'm a mainstream but not a Shastri, something humbling comes to the world. What did the person actually mean when he said that I'm a Shastri but not a mainstream?
Well, Justice Jagedar is an intellectual, he's a judge. He was probably the most important thinker as far as secularism is concerned. If you read his lectures on secularism, he is also, by the way, the son-in-law of Justice Gajendra Gadkar. Justice Gajendra Gadkar was the one who wrongly defined secularism for the nation. So the son-in-law took revenge. No, I should be more serious. He clarified what secularism is after he retired as a judge of Bombay High Court. So he's made a sterling contribution to the understanding of what secularism is. Now, the context in which he said that was he was president of the Indian Radical Humanist Association, and his secretary asked him to go and do something, and it was a private comment to him saying, look, I am a Shastri, I am not a Mestri, as in you do the job, I am the president. But on the other hand, I don't think it's wrong to say either, because what you are saying,
Ideally, it's not wrong, but I think it's not.
I think if someone says I am a thinker, I think you must applaud that person, because people who can think are very few. People who claim to do that they can do things are many, but there are many who have done things without thinking. I personally place a lot of value on those who recognize that they can think, because without those we see a lot of empty action. First thing. Second, if someone said I am a Mestri, and I know enough people who say, thank God I am not an intellectual, I did not think it was condescending. I am only saying that there should be enough space for both without fighting to say what they are good at. A movement can't go just with one thing. But mind you this one thing. The ones who got the French Revolution, there was no Mestri there. Because they were able to unleash ideas into society. How many people wrote the French encyclopedia? A handful of people. The new knowledge that was sent to people. It turned the way people would think about society upside down. Their role. They suddenly understood that they had a role to play to change their own lives. That understanding came from IS.
But I think here it's an intertwine between a class and a caste here in Indian context. Because the Shastri is by birth. And then
If you take
Messi-
Shastri as just a thinker,
thinker.
No.
It's not.
One second. I think this would be wrong and it would be injustice to the great man who said this. Because he said it in jest and in humor. And he used a play of words to say, don't make me do chiller things, you go do them. To his secretary in his organization. Right? It was in a context that he said it. He didn't say it in a public meeting. He said it to his secretary of his organization who asked him to do some basic practical things of a 75-year-old person. So there is a context in which this has been said. If and when you put this on the internet or elsewhere, kindly do not have this part because this is not a proper dealing of what was said in jest. But definitely, mind you this, the ones who have changed the world are not the ones who have necessarily built organizations. Look back at the history of the world. It isn't through just organizations that the world has changed.
Sir, I have a question, sir. I read this in my polity class, sir. There is this article going to I'm not sure which one it is. It says you cannot append religious sentiments, symbols, by speech, or even in written form. So, ideally, we will do sort of immunity. I mean,
Yes, I think, let's put it this way. The law is not frivolously framed. Okay? It's not the law as in Pakistan or in some other Islamic country. So, it is not frivolously framed to start. However, the officers of the law and the ones employed by the government to be in the police department are not necessarily well trained. Now, there is this cause with intent, with intent to hurt, to cause hurt and so on. To prove intent is not easy, first thing. Second, there are enough court judgments in the land, and the judgment of a court is also part of the law of the land. At least for that state if it's a high court, for the country if it is supreme. For example, the Bombay High Court said, you can criticize religion. This is not about criticism, this is about insult. This is about provocation. Now, so I'm not entirely out of sympathy with people saying, don't go into a temple and desecrate. How can it be? A temple is built by some people for themselves and their beliefs. If they are doing nothing illegal in it, if it is not against human rights, you disagree, nothing should give you the right to go and spoil something else. It should not. Just like nobody should.
There are two sections there. Section 295, that's of the IPC, is against damage. Section 295A is about expressing ideas.
No, it's about insult.
Yeah, of course.
Definitely the law is not frivolous. You can read it. It is a dangerous law, I don't doubt that. It makes us vulnerable, I don't doubt that. However, the real danger is because the police officer who books you, because the process is a punishment in India. The court doesn't really send you to prison. The police officer books you. You get into trouble because of that. There is a frenzy that is created around this alleged offense. That is a problem. And then finally, the judge, who may be liberal, who may not. Because the judge can only interpret the law. And it depends on that person's intellectual orientation as well, within the limits of the law. So to that extent, we are vulnerable. We should acknowledge that. But every time it has been used, it has really been used as an abuse of the law. And the courts have come largely in protection of the citizen and of the humanist approach. That is it. We don't have the Islamic blasphemy law. That is for sure. But we have a law which to my mind has an effect of injustice because the ones who have to operate it are not there. There is a judgment in Karnataka, Naikji sent that judgment to everyone, which is an entirely humanist judgment and reaction to a case filed against someone for causing offence. We have a judgment in Bombay, Bombay High Court, which says very clearly that academic research and academic criticism is not attracting the mischief of this. It is only deliberate insight. Book burning, holy book burning. Why should you do it? I mean, there is also a common sense. There is also a civil behavior in society. Why should you be doing that? There are some more intent on it. Now this diverts the actual debate. I personally don't think you should be going into streets burning books. No, I don't think it should be done. I don't think we should be doing it that way. The method of humanism is not necessary, it is of provocative thought, but not of provoking people. Not of attacking them, but of educating them. That is the only lasting way of change. See, just look at the consequence of our actions. Look at what happened with the Danish cartoons. Has it helped the cause of freedom? Not in the way it should be. And that for me is an answer. You do it in a context. And the context decides. And what you shouldn't do to your neighbor, you shouldn't do to someone who doesn't agree with you. We all live in the neighborhood of society. Yeah, I think many people react more angrily about the law than I do. But we are seeing the real situation in the country. Will you change that situation or improve it? You need somebody to tell people, if you do too much of it, the law will take care of it.
Sir, from your last discussion, just I didn't want to ask this, but you were talking about principled, you are interpreting secularism as a principled intervention or a principled separation, and not just any separation or any, that you don't intervene at all. When it is a regressive, religion is regressive, religious practices are regressive, you intervene. And when it is not, you separate, you don't act. So there is my question is on the humanism. One is very that it's true that the superstitious belief and a lot of educated people are also superstitious, especially with IIT and ISRO chairman going and doing all that is there. But then we do find that the kind of the amount of that we are not spending on education, the government is not spending on education, not spending on health, not spending on nutrition. And that has led to many of these superstitious beliefs actually taking roots much more, because you are in a helpless situation, you don't have a primary health center functioning. You do go to a quack, you do get into a... So isn't that also a kind of that one has to battle it out there? Why it is, even after 65 years, we have less than sub-Saharan countries spending on health? So that is my question. How would humanism, no, because I do not see, I see attack on caste system, I see attack on ideas, as you said, at the level of idea, but the level of practice, the ground level, where are these institutions getting formed? Why are we not having educational schools and health centers everywhere? That is one question. The second about the human dignity thing, I wanted to ask, because there I think it's much more subtle, and there I would even bring you as Shastri and Mistri. The whole point is that this, we take women was made to believe and the man was made to believe, or whatever, that superstitious belief that you are fit for one kind of a job, the domestic duties. And there was like, you derive value in that. That is the purpose of my life. That is what man also believes that, and you compare patriarchal beliefs and all. Now the point here is that even now what we are seeing, that when this was broken, that you go out and work, we are seeing that there is a proliferation of domestic labor. And it is the women who are going out and doing that domestic labor. Going from one house to the another and doing that. 99% of it are women. Now, it is, so they are not going through, so even that liberation, even that now you challenge it, how do we challenge it from the human rights perspective? How do we challenge it from the labor rights perspective? Because that right to work, right to go out, right to kind of not inhibited is there, but that the value system still operates in that constricted space. So how do we challenge that? And there I would bring this Maitri and Shastri, because I feel that when I say that, or you say that you can think, you think because women are not, not allowed to think or something like that. Like you keep on doing the same work. So thinking is, first of all, it's not gone, but thinking is also not a practice. So when the secretary is told that you do this thing, the secretary is like, yes, I am doing this thing because I was never allowed to think. That space was not given to me. Where was I kind of? Could I not have been a good thinker? It is true that thinkers should be respected and all that. I think that is where I feel like that statement goes a little, because since we have had this system of caste system where one thing was legitimized in a
Don't misinterpret a jestful comment. Don't spend or waste your time talking about Shastri Maitri too much. It's just a fun thing that somebody said. And it has no connotation, knowing both the people involved in this discussion, of what you are interpreting. Obviously, you have a different experience of this kind of discussions. It doesn't mean everything you hear should fit into that analysis. So you'll have to exclude this gentleman and his comment from that analysis. Okay. Now, as far as the first thing that you asked, this broad spectrum of humanists. Before the meeting formally started, I was asked to speak a little about the international labor. And I was charting out to you the interests of the humanist groups around the world and the various things that they A similar spectrum exists also in India. I mentioned to you that some of them are development oriented, some of them are more into the miracle aspect, some are more intellectual and so on. Ultimately, you would do what you are best able to. Right? The power of a movement or of an organization is enhanced by creating that space for you. Similarly, for someone who can do something else which may be different from it. So, an approach of inclusion of everyone into the activity is what is good. So, when I want to survey the humanist movement around the world, I can confidently say that exists. What you said needs to be done exists in the movement. But not every group is similarly oriented. Now, another question is possible if I talk to you only about those. That they will say, what about the miracle people? Why are they not there? So, you have to survey the whole groups and you will see, for example, the Indian Radical Humanist Association. Their emphasis has never been on the miracle side of things. Their emphasis has been on the renaissance, the rebuilding of Indian society on the basis of new values. How would you do that? Because revolution is understood as a change of institutions on the basis of new values. How do you get new values? You get that by engaging people in discussion, by encouraging them to think, and by trying out new experiments on the basis of those values. Many of them will fail. Doesn't matter. This is not a cricket match. This is about society, and we are allowed to make mistakes with the objective of improving on learning on that basis. So the Radical Humanist Association, for example. But if you sit down and make a survey of humanist groups around the world, a huge number of them are looking at religion. They're looking at religion and the harm it causes, the tyranny of religion and religious institutions, the privilege given to them. This question is really about the privilege religion gets by simply being religion. I am a religion, you can't offend me. Right? I mean, there's no justification for that special protection that religion is seeking. But it is there. And they focus on that. Now, it is a focus on equality, is it not? When you say that those with religion have special protection, whereas I do not have, I need equality. That means not that I need privilege, that they should lose theirs. Now that is a fight for equality. When you say the church should not get the church tax, until you do that, make sure what belongs to humanists doesn't go to them. You can always say, why should humanists take money from the state? But the other way of looking at it is, the money of the humanists is going to the church, because the state is collecting the church tax. So I need it. So when you go down to the principles, these are principles about modernizing society. And a very good example of the positive effect of such a thing, in Sweden, there is a disestablishment of the church. Established church means there is a church which is the official church of the state. In Sweden, a process which started 20 years ago with the humanists being very active about this, has led to the disestablishment of the church. The church is no longer the official state religion of that country, in Norway as well. But society is changed differently. Their emphasis has been that it is a worthy emphasis. To do the kind of work you have invited us to think about is work that should be done, no doubt about it, should be done by other humanists, not the humanists who are involved in that work. We need more humanists who will do that as well. That is why I am saying there must be space enough for humanists to understand that humanism and rationalism is much more than what we are today doing. It is a lot more. But you shouldn't, I don't mean you shouldn't then come and make a demand of the one who is already busy with something to say, why are you not doing that? The question legitimately should be, I think this should be done, can I contribute? That is how the movement should grow. There is enough space for that. It is right that you say that the gender-defined roles in society are continuing, but will they not? I mean, you're talking about women still being maids. Look at the gender, the numbers, the statistics.